Why is martyrdom so strongly linked to Islam? When people walk down the street, there is often an unspoken reaction. A glance, a pause, a quiet step back, especially when they see a man in traditional Islamic clothing, carrying a bag or a suitcase. Why does that instinct exist? Why does that moment of hesitation feel so immediate? For many, it comes down to a single powerful idea: martyrdom. But where did this idea really come from? And why has it become so strongly linked to the image of Muslims? To answer that, we need to look beyond assumptions and into history. When discussing Islam, many people tend to hold a rather extreme perception. It is often assumed that the religion promotes a constant fearlessness toward death, or even a willingness to sacrifice one's life for faith, an idea frequently associated with martyrdom. However, a closer examination of history and doctrine reveals a far more nuanced and complex reality. Many of these interpretations are, in fact, rooted in misunderstanding. Islam is currently one of the largest religions in the world, with nearly 2 billion followers. Muslims live across diverse regions, including Indonesia, Malaysia, the Middle East, North Africa, Europe, and the United States. There is also a Muslim community in Vietnam. The vast majority of Muslims live ordinary lives. They work, study, raise families, and participate in everyday social and economic activities. For them, martyrdom is not a personal goal, but a concept situated within a broader historical and religious framework. Within Islamic tradition, there exists a well-known concept referred to as shaheed, or shaheed, meaning martyr. The term originates from Arabic and originally meant witness. In a religious context, however, it refers to individuals who have sacrificed their lives for their faith and for God, Allah. This concept holds a distinct place in Islamic belief. According to many traditional interpretations, martyrs are not considered dead in the conventional sense. Rather, they are believed to exist in a different state and to receive reward in paradise. As a result, martyrdom evolved into one of the most powerful symbolic elements in early Islamic history, not as a call to seek death, but as a way of honoring sacrifice under extreme circumstances. To understand how this idea emerged, it is necessary to return more than 1,400 years to the early formation of Islam on the Arabian Peninsula. Islam began in the 7th century in Mecca, where the Prophet Muhammad introduced the message of monotheism, the worship of one God, Allah. At that time, Arabian society was structured around tribal systems, each with its own deities, customs, and power structures. Muhammad's call to abandon polytheism directly challenged both the social order and the economic interests of influential groups. As a result, early Muslims were subjected to persecution. Many were tortured, beaten, and in some cases killed. Historical accounts describe individuals who remained steadfast in their faith despite extreme suffering, even to the point of death. In this context, sacrificing one's life came to be seen as an act of profound honor, symbolizing that faith could transcend even the instinct for survival. It was under these conditions that the idea of martyrdom began to take shape. After years of persecution, Muhammad and his followers migrated from Mecca to Medina in an event known as the Hijra, a defining moment that marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. In Medina, the Muslim community began to establish a new social order, but continued to face military conflict. Within these struggles for survival, the concept of martyrdom became more clearly defined. One of the most significant early events was the Battle of Badr in 624 CE. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Muslim forces achieved victory, which was interpreted as a sign of divine support. At the same time, many believers lost their lives. Those who died in these conflicts were honored as martyrs, shahada. According to the Quran, those who die in the path of Allah are not truly dead, but live in a special state and receive divine reward. This belief carried a profound psychological dimension. If death is understood not as an end, but as a transition to a promised afterlife, the fear associated with it can be significantly reduced. Another important factor lies in the Islamic description of paradise, known as Jannah. In the Quran, Jannah is depicted as a place of gardens, flowing rivers, abundant fruit, and eternal peace. In the harsh environment of the Arabian desert, such imagery held deep emotional and symbolic resonance. Paradise is described as free from suffering, illness, and conflict, a state of lasting fulfillment. Some traditions further suggest that martyrs receive immediate entry and forgiveness. However, it is essential to emphasize that these beliefs function as a way of honoring sacrifice within a specific historical context, not as an encouragement to pursue death. A frequently misunderstood term in this discussion is jihad. In Arabic, jihad means struggle or effort. Many Islamic scholars emphasize that its primary meaning refers to an internal moral struggle against greed, ego, and temptation, often described as the greater jihad. There is also a lesser jihad, which may involve armed struggle but only under specific conditions, such as self-defense. Importantly, traditional Islamic teachings do not equate jihad with terrorism or indiscriminate violence. In the 20th and 21st centuries, extremist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS have misused and reinterpreted the concept of martyrdom for recruitment and propaganda. However, these interpretations remain highly controversial within the Muslim world. Many scholars and religious authorities argue that acts such as targeting civilians or committing suicide fundamentally contradict Islamic teachings. As a result, many Muslims globally have condemned violence carried out in the name of religion.
No!
At the same time, the modern association between martyrdom and Muslims cannot be understood through theology alone. Geopolitical conflicts and media dynamics have played a major role in shaping public perception. Extremist groups have selectively appropriated the concept of martyrdom, while global media coverage has often amplified these narratives disproportionately. This selective framing reinforces cognitive biases, leading audiences to associate Islam primarily with violence and martyrdom, despite the fact that the vast majority of Muslims neither engage in nor support such interpretations. Over time, a historically nuanced concept has been simplified into a stereotype. More broadly, the willingness to sacrifice one's life for deeply held beliefs is not unique to Islam. Norse warriors believed that those who died in battle would enter Valhalla. Japanese samurai upheld honor above life itself. During the medieval period, some Christian crusaders believed that dying in religious wars could lead to salvation. These examples suggest that sacrifice for belief is a recurring pattern across human history, shaped by cultural and historical context. Today, more than 1.9 billion Muslims around the world live ordinary lives, focused on education, work, family, and community. Within this reality, martyrdom exists not as a daily objective, but as a historical and symbolic concept, similar to how many societies honor soldiers who died in war. It is best understood as a symbol of sacrifice, not a call to seek death. Conclusion: martyrdom in Islam is shaped by a combination of historical, theological, and cultural factors, including early experiences of persecution, belief in reward after death, and traditions that honor sacrifice. However, this concept does not define the entirety of the Muslim world. For most Muslims, religion is not centered on death, but on living a meaningful and ethical life. In the modern era, perceptions of martyrdom have been significantly influenced by external forces. Extremist organizations have deliberately reinterpreted the concept for ideological purposes, while media narratives have often amplified these associations in selective and disproportionate ways. As a result, martyrdom has increasingly been portrayed as a defining feature of Islam, often in a negative and oversimplified manner. This underscores the need for a more critical and balanced perspective. Rather than relying on assumptions or media-driven images, it is essential to understand martyrdom within its proper historical and theological context. Only then can we arrive at a more accurate and more constructive understanding of Islam as a whole.